this is our game plan for today, and I'm gonna be our MC, and my attempt is to keep us on track with our timing, which is always impossible because you want to spend lots of time discussing, but we don't have a ton of time. We want to be done by 2:30 to wrap up. So this is our game plan. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be having 3 separate presentations, and then after each presentation, we're going to have an opportunity for a breakout room for you to talk about what you saw and how that might be applicable for your classroom or your space. And we will have a back channel that we will share with you in a little bit. And at the very end, we're hoping just for an open mic portion where you can raise your hand and just have an open share of other tips and strategies to be inclusive and engaging in your class.
Hi, my name is Kristen McCartney, and I have the honor of welcoming you. And we wanted to center what we're talking about today in our ABAR work. Teaching critical engagement helps to support 4 of teaching tolerances, anti-bias domains of identity, justice, and action. Engagement helps prepare our students to make the material their own, to help them connect what they're learning in class to real-world issues. And it helps value what our students are what they know, and encouraging them to take action towards advancing equity and justice in their school and community. So as you're thinking about the strategies that we're going to talk about today, think about how that really helps our students connect to what they're knowing and also feel ownership in that learning. So with that, I'd like to introduce Claudia McClellan. She's a teacher at Westview High School and teaches AVID.
Where to start? Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia McClellan. Can you see my screen, you guys, right now? McClellan, I'm in Westview High School, and I teach Spanish and AVID. And thank you so much for your invitation. Today, I would like to talk about Jamboard. Jamboard is a tool I've been using in my remote teaching. And it's been very successful for me and during my classes. One of the things I love to do is check with my students to see what do they think about things that we do in our classroom, and they can give me an input, but also they can have a voice and opinion. So that way they feel more motivated to participate and collaborate in my class. So let's hear what they say. Let's start with Jace.
Jamboards are really great for working with other classmates, especially when working together on different assignments. It helps us engage together and work harder, and I believe that it can benefit us in many ways. Many teachers, especially teachers like lit and comm teachers who do writing assignments, can have students bounce off ideas off each other. Math teachers can help try to solve a problem within small groups, and science teachers can have a prediction time for students. So I'm sure this will benefit many teachers if they use Jamboard.
That was
Jamboards are
Jay.
really great
Okay, let me get out of here.
for working with other classmates.
Hi. Oh my goodness. Can you tell I'm so nervous? If I be honest with you guys, I don't like talk in public. So second student is.
Hi, my name is Manu Boba. I've been Miss McClellan. AVID class, and in my class we use Jamboards a lot, and a couple reasons why I really like Jamboard is that it's really easy and accessible. A lot of people can understand it really quickly even if they're not good with technology, and another reason is that more people are likely to participate in Jamboards compared to talking with their mics in class, especially in the beginning of a class. Also that since everything is online right now and everything is digital, Jamboard is equivalent to whiteboards from classrooms, but it's easier to use, and it's really handy for teachers to use for their students. And lastly, it's really building teamwork, at least in my class, because we like to work together to make it really organized and color-coded, which I think is really fun and really brings together teamwork.
So that was my 2 students' voice, which for me is super important to hear what they think. Okay, let's do some jam. So the way I describe Jamboard for me is like interactive digital whiteboard. Um, it's a great tool to collaborate, engage with the students. You can use the Jamboard for daily check-ins, exec tickets, brainstorming, games. You don't really have to be very savvy in technology. God knows I'm the last person can be great in technology. Christina, you are the witness here. And then it, Jamboard is so easy and handy, and I'm looking for something that, as my students, we are learning and collaborating. We also having fun, and the color what I put with the sticky notes is all those things attract me, and then I enjoy so much using Jamboard. I use it almost every single day in both classes. So you can use it whatever apply for you. If you want to, I will show you what I've been doing. I also will give you some resources that I've been using. You will have access. So how you make a Jamboard? So Jamboard basically is in your Google Drive. You can either follow me right now with your own computer, or you can just listen and observe what I'm doing. Um, Basically, it looks something like this. Go to your Google Drive, and after you and your Google Drive, you go to your little square here, the little, I don't know how they call this, but anyways, the little dots. And then you scroll down, and then you will see the Jamboard. Again, you can follow me and do it you own, or you can observe right now. It's so simple, so easy. After that, you will see your plus sign. For me, it looks a little bit different because I already create a bunch of Jamboards. Like if you see my Jamboard, it looks like this. I have so many. You can make it very simple, like a little question of the day, or you can also do games. Um, Vocabulary for your subject, like I do in my Spanish. I also do like motivational messages for each other. So you can do anywhere you want. And then after that, when you have your plus, you're already ready to start creating your own Jamboard. So let's explore those amazing tools that we have in the left side. So basically, when you have your plus sign, the first thing you want to know is, the first thing you want to know is what title you want to give to your Jamboard. So in this case, I say, what is a Jamboard? Because I'm doing this presentation. So we do have different tools like a pen, marker, highlighter, brush. We do have different colors. I'm very colorful person. I like things be very overwhelmed like this because that's the way I am, but you can do whatever you like. I really like, let's pretend, let's play with this. Let's grab the highlighter and I want maybe red color. I will start maybe give you some color to my arrow right here. Boom. Well, I changed my mind. I don't like it anymore. Let's delete it. And I'm deleted right now. And then I do have the little arrow here that allow you to size your sticky notes, different sizes, move things around and things like that. I also have my amazing colorful sticky notes that I can type everything I want right here, save it, or cancel, whatever you want. Let me delete this one. Boom. The next thing I have is you can select any picture. So I can either go to my Google Drive and find a picture like I did with my Avid. But today I want to take a picture of myself. Let's do that. Let me insert that too. Here's my picture. Let me size it here. Here we go. And then I also have the circle, which is different shapes here. As you notice, I use my arrow and different sizes here. You can use anything that you want. You can create games with those squares. And then we go that later on. That way you can be very creative or very simplistic. It's just whatever applies to you. I really like this next tool because it's a text box that you can text, not just only do use sticky notes, but as you can also text as well. Like you see, I use it in this case. And the last one is my little, I would say laser, that you basically grab students' attention as you're talking, and then you go around and then kind of follow and delete. And sometimes I having fun with this. So some things that we need to have in mind is as everything, like nothing is perfect, I want to make sure you always have to set your norms and expectations in your class, because if you don't say your norms, a lot of students will start moving or deleting things because we all have access to this. You kids can edit everything here. So if you mention about your expectations and norms, it will be a disaster. So make sure you talk about that expectations, respect, and norms, and you during you jump the Jamboard and be responsible when you're using it. Other things that you need to know is the sticky note don't tell you who write what. So remind your students to add their names. If you want to know who is collaborating, I always do it. Like I say, make sure you write your name. That way I know who's collaborating. But if you want to be anonymous, obviously you don't really have to remind them to put their name. It just depends what are you doing for that session or that lesson or whatever, or warm up or exit tickets or game or whatever you want to do. Other thing that is important to remind you is like when you share the Jamboard with your students, make sure you give access to everyone. Like right here, I have the access for anyone, and I also give access to edit as well. Because if you do it only in view it, they don't have access to edit things in there. So let's see. You will have access to a bunch of resources. I've been spending a lot of time find different ways to engage my class. I do have very simple things like warm-ups. I also have very complex things like games like Among Us, which is very popular right now. I also give you the instructions how to play. Guess who? I do a lot of things. My Avid, we use it on every single day for tutorials. I actually changed the template a couple times. I like to make changes all the time. So you will have access to that to show you how you share with the students. I literally copying the link right now, and I will drop this in my chat so you guys can start open it right now. So boom, right there. You have access to that right now. Let me go back to this. So I do, like I say, I teach Spanish and Avid, and this is, I started creating yesterday, coming with a great idea to create one for each group. That way, even though I'm not in each breakout room, I can see who is working by going observe, like log in and observe, then I see the people is moving their sticky notes. So it's a great resource as well that you can be in multiple record room, then you can see if they're actually collaborating. So things like that. So I changed, so for this situation, this example, each of my students have their own board. Obviously I spent a little bit more than time creating this, but it's so easy because if you go here, you can duplicate things, you can delete, you can change. So everything I be learning about Jamboard, I be doing by enjoy like a Facebook teachers using Jamboards, but also playing myself, like take a risk of what if she do this? What about that? And I think for me, I think that is the success, because I always try to implement new things and not always do the same, because the kids can get bored as well. Woo. Any questions?
I think, Claudia, I think we're going to actually go ahead and hold off on the questions for just a moment. I think we're going to go ahead and do our breakout rooms, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to send you into breakout rooms so that you can discuss what you've seen so far and talk to other teachers. And we have some questions to consider here on the slide on the right. So in your classroom, how are you celebrating all students in your learning communities and encouraging them to show up and take some learning risks? How can you create more space for this? And potentially another question is, what are the different ways that we can be in community online as a class or school? So creating that community space and collaborative space in remote learning. So Nicole's gonna go ahead and put us into breakout rooms, and we'll pull you back when it's time.
A few moments later.
Friends, thanks for coming back. I know that that wasn't very much time. We're watching, we're being conscientious of our time. Chris, you're up to talk a little bit about our back channel once you come back.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll put this Jamboard link. I mean, it is on the slide. It's on slide number 12, but we'll put the link in the chat as well. Because I was just going to ask Mary a question, and all of a sudden I got pulled back to the breakout room. So if that happens to you, and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to ask this great question," or have a great comment, the Jamboard is a fantastic place for you to put that. So kind of like Claudia had showed at the beginning, she loves using it with her students, and we're encouraging you to grab a sticky note. Once you click on the Jamboard on the left-hand side, you'll see the tools. Click on a sticky note, choose the color you want. We have 3 different slides for each of our speakers. So one slide will be more specifically for Claudia, and another one will be for our next guest, and then our next guest. But it doesn't always have to be a question. It could be a wondering, a comment, or just a success or something that you really would love to share or ask about. So we really appreciate you joining, and we'll throw that link in the chat. And at the same time, here's what's cool about Jamboards. You get to keep it in your drive if you want to. So the chat will disappear. The Jamboards you can go back to. So that's why we love this as a resource.
We had a question about how we get to the comments in Jamboard.
So you can either choose to put a text box or to use the sticky notes on the left-hand side. And then as soon as you open that up and start typing, it'll go onto the board. Okay. Is there anything more that we wanted to say to that, or are we going to move to our next presenter?
I think we're good to go ahead and move to our next presenter, but please continue to add to that Jamboard. And remember, at the end, we'll have an open mic time for questions. We're going to go ahead and move to Jamie Cooper next, who's going to be sharing with us some nonverbal engagement strategies. She is a teacher at 5 Oaks who teaches AVID and also AGS. So go ahead, Jamie.
Hi, I am here to share how I am engaging with students and getting nonverbal student feedback and some strategies that I'm trying. So one thing that I've noticed when we started in September is how many questions I ask in a period, like 750 million questions. And in normal school, which I say probably 700 times a day, kids nod or they shrug their shoulders, or there's lots of feedback that kids give us in person that we don't get in CDL. And so I was looking for ways to get that similar feedback while looking at black screens. So the first thing I learned was, I don't know how I turned it on initially, but if you guys click on the participants box at the bottom, it's like the picture of 2 people and it tells you there are 133 people in our room today. There are some options down below. There's the yes, no, slow down, go faster, thumbs up, clap your hands, all of those options. Students don't have these reactions, the tears or they don't have the picture reactions. And so I wanted to use those with my students. And then when school started, I realized they didn't have access to those reactions. So I have been using the participants box like a crazy person. So I'll start class and I'll say, all right, can you give me a thumbs up or a yes when you have your, when you have the module open? Or can you let me know any kind of yes or no question? I've just rearranged my questions into yes or no's. And so it lets me know where my kids are. And when we're ready to go on, and I can say, well, it looks like 15 of 25 of us have done such and such, so I'm waiting on 3 more people. And it helps me do that nodding or shrugging their shoulders or confusing look using just that participants box. So you can do it like a have you ever or yes or no questions, and like also just gauging like, do you need help finding our lesson in the module today? And it helps me, kids don't have to type in the chat. They can just say, yes, I need help, or no, I'm stuck. They can also, it kind of flashes if I'm going over notes, if they want me to slow down or speed up. Or sometimes I feel like I'm talking to myself. So I just say, I don't know, am I going fast enough? And then they tell me in the participants box without having to type. So that participants box is pretty much really saves my bacon on a normal basis. An example of a have you ever question. I don't usually use it for that, but I could say, do you, pretty much any kind of yes or no question. Did you drink coffee this morning? And then you guys can go ahead and let's practice that. So go to the participants box. Did you have coffee this morning? And then there's a little coffee symbol. You could use that in the more. All right. And then I can clear your responses. If I want to click clear all, I can clear them. Then I can ask you another question. Are you getting enough sleep? Right. And at the bottom, it kind of gives you a quick tell on where your kids are, right? It's a quick gauge. Yeah, kids can see other kids' responses. They can see the X and the check because it's next to your name. And they can also see like how many kids are in there in total. So they're not completely anonymous, but it's a pretty quick check. So that's how I use the participants box. If you could go to the next slide. I use that daily. And sometimes I ask kids, you guys can choose. Do you want to participate today in the participants box or in the chat? And then they will tell me in the chat where they want to participate. And that's the tool that I'll use for that lesson. And then I also use the chat as like a virtual whiteboard. So I usually have my iPad out and I teach, usually this is in math, but also sometimes in AVID. I'll start with we'll do a couple example problems and I'll say, how are you feeling about what we just did? And so, or I'll, like the example here on the left-hand side is me asking kids, what's the slope, right? So 2 of the kids said the slope was 2. 1 said it was -2/3. 1 kid's explaining you go down 2 and over 3. So it's just, and they usually do that private message to me. And then I'm saying, yes, Jim Bob, you got it, Sally, Aaliyah, that's the right answer. So I'm just sort of talking and kids can hear me verbally checking, yes, no, try again. But they don't see each other's answers. Sometimes I do that privately and sometimes I do it to the whole class if I want other kids to see what people are thinking or see different ways of kids thinking. And then I also use the chat for confidence scaling, and I do this 2 or 3 times in a class period. So we'll do a couple of examples and then I'll say, where are we at scale of 1 to 10? And they'll tell me where they're at. Like one of the kids on the right-hand side said, I'm okay, I'm just tired today, which is I could see in the normal class, but I can't see that. So they use the chat to kind of give me that kind of feedback, letting me know like I'm here, but I'm not all the way with it today. That's where my participation's at. So because they have the choice to either do it direct to me or to the whole class, it gives them some safety and it kind of lowers the risk, but they're still able to actively engage. And I think they like it because I'm giving them verbal feedback to their nonverbal participation. And it helps them kind of check in and feel like they, we're there together, but not everybody has to know what they're saying. And then the last thing I do is on formative, which I don't have a picture of, but almost all of my assignments in math are on formative. And so I pretty much daily at the end of class or during class, depending on how much I guide them through the formative. If an answer is red, if they missed an answer, then I try to click on it and give them a feedback comment. But my comment isn't usually like, no, the answer is 3. It's like, what did you mean by that? Or it's another question. And then kids are starting to respond to me in the comments on formative also. So just finding a way to ask a question to have a student then give me a response gives us an avenue to have a discussion that we would have had maybe non-verbally in the classroom, what I could see, but I'm using either the chat or the participants box to do that. And that's what I got. Hope it's helpful.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate that. There are some things that I didn't know in there, so that was awesome. Thank you. Another thing that I just learned is that apparently in Jamboard, once you have 50 people all collaborating on there at the same time, you're not able to have any more. So hey, that's cool. I've never tried to have more than 50 people on there simultaneously. So we just learned that. So I think a workaround for this large group is once you've made your little sticky note comment, if you can log off of there, other people can hop on. I believe we can have 50 people kind of rotating on there at one point in time. So comment and then get off the document so other people can comment as well. So we can kind of play around with Jamboard. What we're going to do now is we are going to move into breakout rooms again. And we have slightly different questions up here. So the questions to consider this time with what was just shared or other things is, how do you plan to continue this and how might this inform any relationship building with students? So thinking through how that could work. How are we celebrating all students in our learning communities for showing up and taking some learning risks? And I did love how you had options there for different kids and their comfort level. And who is a student that you want to be more deliberate with moving forward? And in what ways? What might this look like? And how might you connect to that student or partner them? Or how might you connect to them better moving forward? All right, we're going to go ahead and head to our breakout rooms and we will pull you back in just a few minutes.
A few moments later.
Okay, we want to welcome everyone back from your breakout rooms and thank you for taking turns on the Jamboard. So people were adding sticky notes and hopping off so more people could participate and play around a little bit there. Just a reminder that if you have some things to share or some notes or some ideas to hop on at any point and add those little things there. We are going to move into our next presenter. Ellen Reynolds, who is a chemistry teacher at BASE, is going to be sharing with us an Among Us group activity. And I happen to have a 7th grade son who thinks Among Us is like the greatest thing ever. So I really wish his teachers were here watching this. So I'm excited to learn. So Ellen, the stage is yours.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Ellen Reynolds and I teach at BASE. I teach chemistry, and so the lesson that I'm sharing today is a specific chemistry lesson, and the reason I'm sharing it is that I got high engagement with my students. We did this just a few weeks ago in December, and it's based on, or it has some theming based on the popular video game Among Us. Some of you are probably familiar with that game. I find it fun myself every once and again. So the slide deck that's shared in the resources, and if we could put that in the chat now, if that's helpful to people, but in the presentation slide deck, there's a link to the resources, which is just the lesson slides that I use. And I got those from a teacher on a chemistry Facebook group who generously shared it and said, hey, anybody use this, modify it however you want. So I modified this for my 10th grade chemistry class. And there's an example here, like this was an orbital diagram. We were learning about electron configurations. And so the theming is like, oh, here's a coded message and it has to do with our content. And that was really good for something where it's a review. Like this was a few days before we would have a quiz. We had already done the introductory instruction on this stuff. And so some students were really getting it. Most students at least knew that they were supposed to kind of know this stuff, but there were certainly students that were still like, I'm confused by this. And so all of those different levels kind of played out in the ways they participated. So they were put into 4 different groups, and each group had a different problem. And I, in like the first minute or so that they were in the breakout groups, I went around and I told the one group that was going to be the imposter that they should come up with an incorrect answer, but they should try to try to make it convincing. So it should just be maybe subtly incorrect. And then they had about 5 minutes. It turns out on the first problem, I needed to give them a little bit more time because they had to kind of figure out what they were supposed to do and work out kind of who was going to talk and their dynamics of their breakout group. But then they basically wrote up their solution on the shared slides. So this was a Google Slides file. And they would talk about, who might present it. But when we got back to the main room, it was a pretty quick presentation, like just a minute or two each group. And I did kind of make sure that my groups had at least one person that I thought would be willing to speak. It turned out that as long as the group, if they added things to the slide, which in some cases they were more willing to do that and they might just not want to talk that much, we could present that slide and their work could kind of stand on its own. Or it could really be there where, if we had one brave volunteer, they would just be able to talk through what was already there on the slide. And then, they would have the kind of discussion that you have in an Among Us game where, it's like, I think I had it set up for 1 minute of discussion and then 1 minute where they were voting. And so just immediately they had their, several of them had their mics off and they're talking about group one is sus because, something with the electrons. And they're, really playing into the theming of Among Us. And they're discussing in the same way that you do in that video game, but they're accidentally talking about some chemistry and sorting through those ideas as well. And really, it was just fun. I used Zoom polling to do the voting, and so that allowed me to kind of just have it open for a minute, and then we didn't kick anybody off of the spaceship, but we had fun. And in one class, they chose the wrong group, like both rounds, and it was just hilarious. We had a really good time. So if we could go to the next slide. So part of what I'm sharing today is just the reflections of what went well and what didn't go well with this. This was kind of a complicated lesson for me in terms of what I've been doing in distance learning. And it had a lot of moving pieces. Like I had the breakout rooms, we had the game has rules, and I needed to have them work on a shared file and get in and out of the breakout rooms and kind of make the timing all work. And that's a lot of moving pieces. And it just so happens that the first class that I see of my chemistry classes is lower in participation. So by the end of that first class, I was like, I don't know that this is a good idea, but I don't have another lesson in the bank. So we're just going to roll with it. And the other classes, it was great. We laughed a lot. And it was good that they had different ways to communicate, which has kind of come up in some of the other presentations too. Some would just unmute themselves and discuss in this setting when they don't normally do that, but they could also participate in the chat. The chat was just open for them to just freely discuss like it would be in the video game. And the groups and everything was large enough that for students that were still trying to just figure out the basics of the topic, they could kind of watch and learn without it being a hindrance to the lesson. And in that first class, I had one group, in the breakout room, they wouldn't talk to each other. They didn't have a presentation to give when we got back. And I was still figuring out how the lesson was going to go. And in that class, I had tried to have them each group make a copy of the slideshow. So they were just sharing theirs. And for the next class, I switched it up and just the whole class had one slideshow. So you could modify my slide deck and that was what was going to get presented. And that was a lot. It took like one step out of the things they had to do. But it was a little bit of a risk because, they could get too into the theming and start sabotaging the other groups. So they didn't. I asked them not to and they didn't. And so that's like a small risk to take, but I think those like little things like changing up your lesson plan, taking a little bit of a risk really helps students like see themselves as part of your team. Like we're all in this together. And then also the one thing I put on here that didn't go well, like this is my experience in Zoom and I just want to be honest with it. When I do breakout rooms, especially if there's a lot of moving back and forth, I've got students dropping out of the Zoom call right and left. And what's worse for some students than others. And I just kind of accepted that as something that would happen with this lesson. And as you know, they rejoined, and it's like, okay, well, what do you want me to, you want to go back to your breakout room, or do you want to just wait for them to finish? And just kind of treated it like, you know what, this is just a game. So whatever helps you have fun with it, that's fine. And so I think that the slide deck that's there is useful, where you could modify it for any subject. And I would recommend it for the kind of thing where it's like a review, where you might play like a Jeopardy game, or, you know, the kind of game type of review lesson. So.
That's perfect. Thank you, Ellen, for sharing that. Talk about engaging, right? Like kids totally being bought in. We're going to hop into a breakout room. We're going to have some different questions to consider. And then when we come back, we're going to have just kind of an open Q&A time. So the questions that you maybe put in the chat or been wondering about, or that are in the Jamboard, we'll have an opportunity to ask those after this breakout room. So the questions that we've posed this time: how can you leverage student interest into your classroom practices? This is a perfect example of that. What are the systems and structures that can be removed, replaced, or maybe updated to help all students to learn, navigate, and be present? And what is going to bring joy to live lessons? How can we create more space for games and joy and students to be bought in, right? Okay, friends, we're going to go ahead and head off to those breakout rooms, and I'll see you in a few minutes.
A few moments later.
And I don't know, I might call on Kristen to give a little shout out to GimKit, because we were doing a little bit of talking while everybody was going out into their breakout rooms. Because one of the people that we had on here was asking if GimKit is okay to use in the district. So I don't know if Kristen can elaborate on that a little bit.
Good to use, but that's as far as I've made it. It looks like there's a 30-day free trial. The other one that I might throw out there that looks free is Quiz with a million Z's at the end. That's also been approved for use.
And then I think this question is mostly towards Ellen, that there was a Facebook chemistry teacher group. So I was wondering if you could maybe expand on that or tell us how to find it.
Sure. So the lesson that I used, that slide deck, came from somebody in the AP chemistry teachers group. And so that's a specific to AP chemistry teachers. If you teach AP chemistry, I could tell you how to find that, but if you search for that, it's the one with the fireworks, but it is the kind of thing where you have to ask to join and verify that you're an AP chemistry teacher. But it's a super helpful group. It's saving my skin this year.
I know that I've definitely joined Facebook groups for the Teachers College work. I know Chris has a Facebook group for Canvas users. That is really something he finds a lot of
125,000 users in it. So yeah.
There is also, since that was a science related thing, there is something called like Canvas for Science Teachers that has some specific things where people are discussing how to, build quizzes that have science content and things. That's helpful.
I'm just out of curiosity, how many of us had never heard of Among Us before? Wow, okay. Has anyone used any Among Us in their classrooms? Maybe even just, Carrie's example is that she has a 7th grade son whose teacher used just an Among Us Google slide template. The content had nothing to do with Among Us, but her son got super excited just seeing that theme.
Well, and I don't want to steal the thunder, but one of the friends in our group shared how she had stickers. So I don't know if she's still here, but I'd love her to share her story.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it was me. I'm Cindy Dizon from Five Oaks Middle School, and I'd done a game and a prize of some stickers I got off of Amazon. Our PTO gave us some money to purchase things off of Amazon and some postage stamps. So I mailed it to some of my students over, went to break after they won a game. And they came on camera. I saw 3 kids I've not seen on camera yet this year. They came on, were holding up either their cell phones or just their sticker and their envelope where I mailed it to them. And they were just so thrilled to get these stickers in the mail.
Yeah, and if
I had my kids.
Team, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I had my kids in Avid on a fun Friday teach me how to play because I have no idea. So it was kind of we did breakout rooms and they set up the games and they were telling me what to do and I had no idea. And it was funny because I don't know what I'm doing and they appreciated that.
And at this time for me, I end in learning because my Avid kids, and then they motivate me to do some activities with my Spanish class and then my Jamboard. So if you check the Jamboard, it's a game with Among Us as well. So it's very cool. Kids love it.
Well, I'm gonna see if Steve's willing to share. He's talking a little bit about using Go Formative for more than just in-class activities. I'm wondering if you can just expand on that a little bit, Steve.
Maybe I miswrote it. It's for in-class activities is what I meant. I also use it for some at home, independent activities, but in class, especially good to use for short groups of questions for kids to answer. And you can see whether they're answering in real time if you look at the responses page on Go Formative. And one of the other things I've used it for, I'm still trying, working on different ways to optimize that. But one way I used it that way was after the kids gave their answers, you can show all the answers by share screen and let kids look over them. And you can do that with the names off if you want to keep it anonymous and private as well. So we did that with a couple of things. And I think they liked seeing, what their classmates had to say in writing that way. And it was safe since it was anonymous as well. And it was pretty good for sparking some conversation about things. But the conversation was still mostly written, chat responses and things like that. But that's good, If I can't get verbal, I'll take chat. So it's a good tool, a really good tool. It's got a lot of ways to use it. I'm still figuring out some of the best ways to optimize it for CDL, but I'm using it a lot more than I did before all this happened, that's for sure.
Okay, and I don't know if someone raised their hand and it went away and I couldn't see. If anyone else wants to unmic and ask a question, feel free.
This is Selena Seaman. I'm at Meadow Park. I don't have a question, but I just want to thank everyone who shared their information, and then also for allowing us the time to meet in breakout rooms. We had some really good discussions, and even just being able to collaborate with our colleagues and just over the stress, some of the glitches, some of the wins. It's just nice and appreciated. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think, our boss once said, I think there's something that we need to understand about engagement being innovative and a part of our practice, that we tend to not think about it, but it really, can celebrate student voices and pull them in. And so I think that to give us a little bit of space and time to talk about the risks that are kind of inherent when we try some of those things, what worked and what didn't work, I think can be a little bit liberating, because it says, okay, we can give some priority to this, but then it's also really helpful to hear from other teachers on how it's working. What's my timing again on this, Carrie?
I think you go ahead and share about our upcoming sessions,
okay,
and the exit survey and the resources.
Okay, perfect. She's our taskmaster a little bit, trying to keep us on time. So we figured that this would be a great way for us to provide an outlet, not just for the breakout rooms, but for teachers across the district to be able to share what is working and what they're doing. And just a great format for us to continue. So we will have future sessions like this. We're going to be kind of changing the topics around a little bit. So today's was mostly focused on engagement. The next one will be talking about providing feedback, as we know that that is incredibly important for students. And then after that, we'll be talking about maintaining relationships as we're getting towards the end of the school year, what has been working well, and what are you planning on fixing or changing up. And then at the end of the year, we'll be talking about collaboration and discussions. And then I know I keep harping on this with our team, but thinking about what does all of this mean, all of this great knowledge that we've stored up on tech integration from a virtual standpoint, and what does it look like as we consider moving back to face-to-face? How do we do that transition? And so that will be kind of the focus at the end of the year. So we will be back with the same kind of format, really giving space and time for you guys to collaborate like we did today, and for fellow teachers to share what's working. And can someone drop in the chat for me the exit ticket that we wanted to make sure we gave time for everyone to fill out?
And I went ahead and put in the chat also the registration for future sessions, although I'm noticing that February 10th is not on there. So we'll make sure that we update that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think once we do have the information up, like Nicole shared, our upcoming ones, if you're like, oh, I'd love to be part of that group of sharing, we would love to have some friends volunteer. And I'd love for all of you to give a clap to Claudia, Ellen, and where is she at? I can't even find her. Jamie, because they've done fantastic. And Claudia's like, she says the same thing all the time. Always so nervous. You did fantastic. All three of you, from the bottom of our hearts, we so appreciate you sharing so much today.